Welcome to Daddy's Podcast.
This is the Redefining Plastics Podcast. Welcome to the Redefining Plastics Podcast. My name is Justin Riney. Today, we have Sara Samuelson with SSD Design. We're excited to have you. I appreciate you taking the time today. And this is another episode of who is the plastics industry, but specifically who is the recycling industry. So Sarah's got a lot of experience in the recycling world. She is an eco warrior in her spare time. I ran into her. She's also local to Charlotte, and I saw her on a newscast, Spectrum News here locally. So she first came to my attention and really wanted to bring her on to talk about what her company's doing and just recycling in general. So Sarah, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Appreciate it. So tell us a little about yourself and what you're doing in the recycling industry. A little bit about the company too would be great.
Yeah, so our company is set up as a recycler, transparent communicator with manufacturers and really anybody who's trying to recycle. And we go out and we also talk to schools, and we talk to everywhere from elementary school all the way up until college level. And we also educate companies on how to recycle. So recycling is a really core part of our business. And a lot of that stuff that we do, we're doing just to try to help educate people in understanding resource management. But we also do compounding, and we have selected polypropylene as our champion. And we can talk more about that as we get a little further down the road. And then we started getting frustrated with certain materials that just weren't getting recycled at all, but that we saw value in. And we started our own retail division. All of that is under the Resol brand. And our slogan is, we believe growing green should be about the results, because this is a very mathematical approach that we're taking. We're looking at things as to not just what works, but what is effective and what makes sense. And so that is the core business as a whole. We started in 2017, but I've been doing this almost 20 years now. And so it's been a long journey. I was very fortunate to start in this industry completely by accident, falling into plastics and recycling and just everything. And my core business that I originally began in did every type of recycling. They did cardboard, they did aluminum, they did plastics, they did anything you can imagine, they did. Which was amazing for me as an individual, because one, I thought everybody just did recycling. Like that was a thing. Everybody did that. What do you mean you want to recycle?
Yeah.
I was kind of shocked by that. But once I got into the industry, I realized that there are so many resources that we're using that are doing amazing things, and we're not recovering them. We're not value adding them back again. And I became very much fascinated and in love with the idea that we can do good for the environment and at the same time do good for industries and innovation. So I felt like there was a hole that we needed to help fill.
So my next question was going to be, how did you get into this? But it sounds like we have a very similar background where we fell backwards into plastics / recycling, which is not atypical. I'm finding out throughout these discussions that most people never set out to get into plastics. I think something that I like to do with all of these discussions is I really want the listener / viewer to understand who you are and who the recycling industry is. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are as a person, kind of what you do, family? You don't need to get into too many details, but just a little bit about Sara, the person, rather than Sara, just the business person. I think it's important.
Yeah. So when I first started in this industry, even before then, I was a champion of science and math and engineering. My mother worked for Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which is a division of NASA. My grandfather helped build and design Jeeps with the quadritrack systems, which most of us know about now. And people in my life really influenced me to love engineering, science, and math. And so it wasn't really a coincidence that I was involved in chemistry in college, because I wanted to be a forensic scientist. And I was really fascinated with helping solve problems that weren't so obvious. like what was really going on behind the scenes. I loved Sherlock Holmes, the Harvey Boys, Nancy Drew, just about anything I get my hands on that was like solving a mystery. And so going into college for that kind of problem solving idea was an ideal solution for me. And eventually I got to the point where I couldn't pay my own bills. I mean, I was working with the mentally and physically disabled, which was a fabulous job. I was a job
Mhm.
coach, but I just was starving. And I had to find another job, something that was actually going to help me get through college. And so um, I was looking at an ad in the paper one day and I saw this news clipping for a purchasing manager or associate in the recycling industry. And I was like, what is this? They wanted, an engineering degree and they wanted years of experience. And of course I applied. I mean, why
Mm.
not? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Take your shot. Why not?
So I got the job. I was really surprised that I got the job, but I guess, there was some reason that I fell into that. I was
Well, you're
probably
engaging. I'll give you that. We've talked a couple times now, and I think you get people's attention. And I think that it's pretty easy to get a job when you can maintain people's attention for more than 30 seconds.
that is really nice of you to say, but I'm pretty sure because I was the only female in the industry at the time and they thought the same thing in a different way. That's all right. I took what I could get, right? Like we're
Yeah.
not
Hey,
judgmental.
I-
So
and I think that's a good point here, too. We need more females in this industry. I think if there's anything that I can advocate for, we need more women in STEM. We need more women in recycling. We need more women in plastics. One of the first meetings I had in the newest company, the one that I'm working for now that I won't mention, but that meeting I sat in the room, it was me and 5 women. And that was the first time I was ever outnumbered. And I loved it because it shows that the kind of the demographics are changing in the industry.
yeah. And I mean, really biologically, we're kind of designed for synthetic activity, putting two things together and creating something new out of it. I mean, that's what we're biologically designed to do naturally. So why not put us into sciences and engineering where we can create things from different ideas? It does make sense. And women are fabulous at those kinds of jobs. It's really sad that most people aren't supported in that way. I was very fortunate to have no boundaries when I was growing up and examples of women who were doing things that were, breaking that glass ceiling. So I didn't have the limitations that so many people have incurred.
Well, I have 2 daughters, so that's very good and heartening for me to hear. And I'm trying to do the same thing here. Hopefully, hopefully
Yeah.
I don't screw anything up, and they do feel like they can do whatever they want, and that they'll actually do that. But yeah, I think it's important for people, specifically people that aren't in the plastics world, to understand who the plastics industry and who the recycling industry is. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people think that we're either out to get them or we're uh, some like old white guys sitting around a big board table in the middle of nowhere making all these decisions on how we're going to screw over the consumer. And I think most of us are like they love complex issues and they want to solve them. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a great thing, and we need more of that. And that's what I do. That's why I love this industry, because it's every day is different. Every day is a new challenge, and I keep being told that I can't do whatever it is I want to do, and that just makes me even more interested. It makes me want to do it even more.
Well,
And I feel like you're somewhat of a
there's
kindred spirit there.
immunity to it, right? Like we
Yeah.
develop some sort of like structural immunity where we just say, you know what? I've heard this before. You don't get to control me. Thanks for having your opinion and you can keep having it, but it doesn't control my choices, right? And
Yeah.
that's the message that we need to give back to our young people is that yeah, you're hearing this dialogue and we understand why you feel this way. Like we're frustrated too about the old bunch of white men sitting behind a scene doing all these controls, but that doesn't mean we're all that way or that that's what the future looks like. It means that we need to understand that this feat of engineering and plastics as a whole is a feat of engineering. Anybody who says it's not has really doesn't understand what we've created.
Yeah.
We have created this most amazing and and fabulous product that has managed to do things that we've never been able to do in the history of humankind because of plastics. And we are saving wildlife as a result of it. We have to start seeing the math behind this. This isn't some scheme or gimmick. Yes, there are companies out there who are scheming and gimmicking, and there are
Yes.
companies out there who are ripping people off and lying, and it's all PR. 100%. And
Yeah.
I'm a for-profit business, so I'm not going to tell you that I'm not in it to make money, because that would be a lie,
You're a for-profit business in recycling, which
Yeah.
some people think is an oxymoron, which I
Yeah.
think is also important for you to explain to people that,
I,
no,
I
you
well,
are making money in this.
Yeah, I make money, and I give my family a good life as a result of the work that I do. But I'm also an environmentalist, and I got to choose my career. I was very fortunate. I could work for a lot of different places doing their number pushing things and make just as much money or better than what I'm doing now. But I choose this career because this is where I can make a difference in what I'm doing, and I can put my mind to use in making better choices that help people to understand options. Like when I go in and I talk to, like say the Cleveland Institute of Art, I get to talk to some of those college students who are teaching biomimicry, and they're learning about how to design products, how to build products, how to create products. And I get to tell them, hey, I know this bamboo idea sounds great that you're going to put with some aluminum product because you go, oh, these are sustainable. And I go, that's not going to get recycled. You understand that, right? Like what you're
Mhm.
doing makes no sense. And it's not because you don't have good ideas, it's because you don't have education on what you're doing,
Yeah.
you
And,
know?
and you don't understand the recycling market. And I think, and that's not atypical either. I think most people that I talk to have no clue how recycling works, how
Right.
the separation works. They've never been to a MRF.
Nope.
Somebody on one of my most recent podcast episodes said, we need to send kids to MRFs to really understand this. And I was like, no, I don't
Totally.
think
At
as
landfill.
a kid I ever went. I never went as a kid. There
Yeah.
was one right up the road from the school that I went to, and I never went there. And I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
we have no trash cans, no compactors at our plant.
I
Um,
also love that.
yeah, we really want to live it. We want people to know that we're not just talking about doing it, but we're experiencing what you're experiencing. We're challenging ourselves as a manufacturer to say, is this possible? How hard is what we're telling you to do? We're not just telling you to do it, we're doing it ourselves. And it's not that we're not making waste, because sometimes some things are inevitable and we still can't find a solution for them. And we have to go to a landfill and deposit that stuff in a landfill. But it's important we see it. It's
Yeah,
important that we experience where our failures were.
yeah,
Without that, we learn nothing. We gain nothing, and we're not experiencing what really it means to make this bad choice to throw something away.
yeah,
And the math behind what we're doing is so really important to understand the numbers behind it. And I'm going to say some really broad numbers here that I think are really important, for people to understand. How much does it cost to make something new right now? What does it cost to make a new product? Because we all look at cost structure as important, right? Like
mhm,
recycled content costs more money up front. And, virgin product is cheaper. So we want to focus on what's cheaper as an industry. And I'm speaking mostly now to the manufacturers out there who are
yeah.
looking at our choices that we're making. And I'm going to ask you a question. What is your time worth? What is your time worth? Because is it worth 8 years? Because that's how long it takes to grow a poplar tree. And
Yeah.
that's what's used in the paper industry, new. Whereas recycling, you can do that in a matter of a couple of weeks to recycle a product. So 8 years versus weeks, big difference. But now I'm going to give you a really big number, 10 million years. That's how long it takes to make new fossil fuels.
Yeah.
If you think about those numerics in real numbers and you say, I'm not collecting, managing, and resourcing these products, at some point there's going to be an inflection point where we have used more than we can recover and more than we can collect. And when that happens, let me tell you what, plastics are going to be gold,
Yeah.
because we can't live in a world now that doesn't include plastics. That's just not our world.
Could not agree more.
We have medical care because of plastics. We have cars because of plastics. We have cell phones because of plastics. Imagine if you had to wait for 10 million years for your next update on your phone. I
I,
don't think
I
you,
would have a nervous breakdown.
yes,
It would be a problem.
But
I
I
can't
mean,
even go on vacation without my phone.
right, or an update, right? Or getting a
Yeah.
new phone every year or 2 years or whatever it is that, you're used to for your lifestyle. The point is that we're taking away from what we're doing in this really, like, linear way. Oh, it's cheaper to do this virgin activity. And I am not saying by any means that virgin doesn't have a place. So don't mishear me. I think virgin is important in order to support the needs that are missing in recycled material right now because it is a damaged product, it's a defective product. We have to fix it in order to make it work, but it doesn't need to be at 100%. We need to be using this sparingly and start considering what our choices are that are available to us. And what's available to us is to treat this product that is a product of its own success.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I mean that almost nostalgically. Plastics have done such a good job of designing and building a perfect material that it keeps performing even when we don't want it to.
Yeah.
We want it to die on command, which is why we keep trying to come up with an inferior product like a potato starch or some other random idea that we're like, oh, it's just going to die when we want it to. Well, guess what? It's not dying. You know how I know that? Because landfills are still filling up, and 88% of what goes in a landfill isn't a plastic product.
Mhm.
So, it's growing at a greater rate than the plastics are being produced, which means that what you're thinking is going to die quickly isn't dying quickly, and it isn't a more superior product. Plastics are a product of their own success,
Yeah.
sadly.
And what I usually like to start these things off are there's a one sentence question that I ask everybody. We kind of touched on some of this stuff, but just quickly, what do you think of when you hear the word plastic?
Amazing.
Yeah. That's a good response. I don't think I've had that one yet. That's a new one.
But irresponsibly managed.
I could not agree more with that too. I think the end of life problems for plastics are a real thing. I think
It's been an
anybody,
that's
yeah,
the
that,
there's no such
yeah,
thing.
and
It is that
it,
that is we create things, but we don't think about destroying them. And the thing
mhm.
is in destruction in natural environment, there's no such thing as destruction. There is just the next cycle. What happens
I think
next?
we have to design products better to make them more easily recycled. I don't think anybody's going to argue that.
Nope.
I think a lot of people, when I get some hate on the internet, we'll just put it that way. And a lot of people think that I'm just 100% pro plastic. Yeah, I'm pro plastic, but I'm not pro 100% of the uses of plastics today. I think there are applications that we need to stop. I
Right.
think we need to reduce. We need to reuse. I truly am committed to the sustainability thing. I think a lot of people think, oh, he's in plastics and in sustainability. So he's just some empty suit that's out there trying to market. And that's not what I'm trying to do. I truly want to make this world a better place. And that's the whole purpose of this whole podcast, which is a bit of an aside, but I think it's important for people to hear.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it comes down to like understanding non-absolutes. We live in a world right now, especially right now, where we have these absolutes in our brains. Plastic is all bad, or paper is all good, or anything is all anything. And that is just not reality. There is no such
yeah,
thing as all anything, right? Like we need to start looking at the world in a more naturalistic way. Like plastics don't exist terrestrially, which means they don't degrade terrestrially, but that doesn't mean that they're bad. Without finding them, we wouldn't have saved wildlife from total decimation in the 1800s. I mean, elephants and turtles were being decimated at exponential rates because we didn't have resources to be able to create what we wanted to create or needed to create at the level that our population required. We just didn't have that. And we don't have a current substitute for what we're doing now. If we did, we'd be using it. Why do you think
yeah,
populations of plastics continue to grow despite the negative press that it's been getting? It's not because plastics are bad, it's because they are too good. If I told you I could give you a house that was cheaper and more effective and did everything that you ever wanted a house to do, and you'd only have to pay a fraction of the cost, would you pay for that house or would you pay for the old antiquated house that took 10 years to build, was less efficient, and didn't do what you wanted it to do, what would you spend your money on?
Exactly.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah. I think it's interesting to me because some of the hate that I get online is, well, the reason why there's so much plastics out there is because the plastics industry keeps pushing more and more and more production. And there's something to be said for that.
I
That
think that's
there's
true.
been some exponential growth. But I think what they're missing is the reason why we're producing this is because there's demand for it. It's not like we're just producing and then pushing out all these other products and saying, well, no, now you can't use paper. You have to use plastic. There's choice. It's just a capitalist society. People are choosing to use plastics because it's the best solution for the application that they are,
Well,
whatever they're making. And
let's
it
just talk about
frustrates me.
food for a minute. This is a really important
Hmm.
subject because I think a lot of people don't realize the value of plastics. They just see it as this demon that is so bad. Like, I can tell you how many times I walk into a room and I say I'm an environmentalist and a plastic manufacturer, and their mouths drop open like I just like threw up all over them or something. And I'm like, no, it's true. It's true. But the reasons why is because when I look at the efficacy of what we're doing with the plastic products that we have, it just makes sense. Like, an example is in the food packaging industry, we really focus on trying to make products more sustainable because we know those products are going to get thrown away because we assume they're going to be composted. And we assume that that product is going to decompose in the way it would naturally do. And we expect the environment to do it for us. The truth is that when you pile stuff on top of other stuff, it's not going to decompose. It doesn't heat the conditions that it needs to heat in. It doesn't decompose in the way that you need it to. There's no sunlight. There's no interaction with the rest of the environment that it needs in order to decompose. And
Hmm.
not only that, but we are creating a product that is put into a situation where it has more microbials in it than we would if we used like a polypropylene product, for example. Why is that? Because it is the difference between hydroscopic and hydrophobic material. And we think about those kinds of materials as being porous, where they're accepting and receiving microbials. So we have to look at these things in very linear mathematical ways about what does it cost us to make this packaging, say 8 years, in the case of a paper product. And on top of that, how long does it preserve or keep our food? And on top of that, what is the health risk that it is presenting to human beings? There is zero health risk to us if we preserve and protect all of our resources with all of the materials that are making right now. The reason why we have health risks is because we are not preserving and protecting those products. And I'm not saying that it's all human beings' fault either. We just create products faster than we destroy them. We need to implement AI, robotics, some other kind of technology out there that can move as fast as we do from an innovation standpoint. We just haven't gotten there yet. In 10 years from now, what the world looks like to me is going to be something that we have designed and developed materials that have gotten rid of organic debris that are in the way of the material that we need to collect, that we need to manage from a non-terrestrial standpoint, right? And if
Yeah.
we don't do that, the industry looks very bleak. The efforts that all of us are making to recycle, manage, and do things continue to look bleak. We are just not effective enough.
Yeah.
It comes down to what we do in the future and where we resource manage. Instead of demonizing these materials, we need to support them and celebrate them and say, okay, how can we help you? How can we make this better for everybody? Instead of saying, how can we make it worse by making everybody feel bad about something that is not going to stop? Like, you're not going to stop making and manufacturing products made out of plastic. Stop thinking that's going to happen and start
Yeah.
thinking about ways you can do something about it.
Yeah. There's this big effort, the Global Plastics Treaty. It obviously did not come to any kind of resolution at the most recent INC5, which, the whole way the thing worked, it wasn't going in a direction that I was happy with. Um, I do think that there needs to be some kind of legally binding instrument that sets the playing rules for all of this and the future of recycling. Because I do think
ERCs, is that what you're referring to?
INC5 is the most recent one. I think the issue becomes when we only focus on the plastics and we're not focused on waste
Yeah.
as a whole, because I think food waste is a big deal. You've already talked
Huge.
about it. It's the largest contributor of GHG emissions in any landfill, and we need to compost more. I could not agree more with you in the fact that if anybody wants to make a difference in what they're doing, home composting, that's a big deal. You should
Huge.
be doing that.
Stop
You
throwing away your
cannot
food.
keep growing. Yeah,
Keep
you
doing
cannot
that.
throw food away
It's
in the
good for
trash.
your garden. It's good for your
Yeah.
yard. Sell it, make
A
some
buddy
money
of
on
mine's a chicken farmer, an urban chicken farmer. He throws all his food scraps out to the chicken
And
and they eat it.
actually,
Like, great
there's
idea.
a great business plan here that I could propose if anyone is listening from the government. Let me tell you what, put your money into helping me design a superheated composting for landfills. So instead of having landfills, you have resource recovery centers. Because the fact that you keep spending money on building more landfill space instead of spending money on solutioning these problems is
Yeah.
such a waste of our money as tax dollars. Let's put in our tax dollars to something that's actually going to do something, you know?
Yeah. We need breakthrough technology. I think the waste industry
Like what? You
has
can
been
call
done the same way. It's been done the same way for 100 years. And at some point, we're going to have to do something different, or we're going to end up like Wally. And we're going to have all this trash stacked up on top of each other 200 years from now.
It is
That's
so
it.
tragic. I mean, honestly, it's not hard to do what we need to do. We just need to find the funds to do it,
Yeah.
and people have got to put money into these ideas in bigger ways than I'm going to give you $5,000 or $10,000. These are multi-billion-dollar projects that if you think that you're spending your money better at putting it into a landfill, you are so far-fetched. By 2050, we will reach an inflection point with oil,
Yeah.
and we will be using more oil than there is available in the future. That is scary because we still 150, 60 years later have not found another solution for the way we live.
Yeah.
And we keep making new products, and we're still more careless than we've ever been. So until something changes, and I'm not saying getting rid of recycling at all. No, I'm saying recyclers will get material already cleaned up, ready to go, you ready to use, ready to process. Companies may get those materials ready to use, ready to process directly from the resource recovery center. Can you imagine a world that looks like that? Instead of a world that looks like we have a landfill that we have to feel sorry about.
Yeah.
That technology isn't that far off. It just needs money to fund it. So all
Well,
those leaders out there just need to put their money in that. Put yourself a little
yeah,
box together.
and I think the plastics industry is willing to invest in new technologies and things that will improve situations. So maybe we need to have a
Yeah, we
offline chat
had a
about this and see
conversation
what
on
we can do.
because I've
Yeah.
already designed it, man. I'm gonna tell you what, Justin, I have built it. I know exactly what this will look like. I have drawn it out. I have CAD designs of it. I am ready to go the moment somebody wants to give me funding to make it happen.
All
The
right.
problem I have is getting that kind of resource available because it's about working together with people who have existing patents, who have existing copyrights, and being able to get those people to get on board with this bigger project that helps everybody. This
Yeah.
isn't just about profitability, it's about progress.
And I've been trumpeting the public-private partnership for the last probably 6 months. And none of this is being solved with government alone
Mm,
or with industry alone or with private companies like yours. We need everybody in the tent,
absolutely.
everybody together, everybody solving these problems. Otherwise, we're going to be in the same boat
And
another 6 years from now, 10 years.
it is really hard because when you bring science and marketing together, they don't get along. When you bring in marketing, science, and profitability together, everybody is on the opposite end of the spectrum and you're all valuable. Everybody is valuable. We all have that level of expertise that we need in order to put these types of activities together. But we all have to be conjoined with a common goal and a common interest, and that will help us oversee and get past those differences that we have fundamentally with something that means something to everybody, you know? So when we go to schools, we try really hard to help them understand things in a very physical way. So we'll bring in like building blocks and Legos so they can understand. And we really like Rice Krispie trees because, you can like tear apart a Rice Krispie treat and put it back together again. And it kind of doesn't go back the same way it went in to begin with. And I think that really gives people a better perspective of exactly what happens when you have a recycled product versus a new product and understanding where the deficits are and how we can do better because they can like physically experience that opportunity. And I think if we can do that with legislation and people who think that they know everything, then maybe, just maybe we'll be able to convince them of like what the importance of these activities are. And we have to
Mhm.
teach them like children.
Yeah, we need people to actually be involved in the recycling process. So
Mhm.
TRP, I got hammered for this one too. I quoted TRP's State of Recycling report, and everybody said I was disinformation. There was fake news. I'm like, no, this is multiple different organizations that all came together, did similar studies, and they all were anywhere from 41% to 47% of the 5 different studies that I've seen on actual recycling participation in the US. And I love what you're doing. Talking to kids is the way to do it because Gen Z recycles at the lowest rate out of all generations because they've been told their whole lives that it doesn't work.
Yep.
And so we need more people to be involved. And it's not just that consumers are apathetic, it's that half the time consumers don't even know what to recycle. So we need to be better
Right,
at
what's
all
your
of this.
like that
Yeah.
that's the whole point of this resource recovery center that I've been talking about and why I
Mhm.
designed it. Because in my mind, like I feel like I'm pretty close to an expert in the field. I wouldn't say an expert because new things are being created all the time, but I know a lot. And I look at my recycle bin, I got 2 recycle bins and I'm like, is this gonna get recycled? I don't know. I'm not sure what's gonna happen to this. And I've been to our municipality here in Charlotte,
Mhm.
and I've seen that public private partnership in play here in Charlotte, on those levels. And I look at them and I go, why aren't they collecting this? Like this is such an easy thing to recycle. Like what is the problem here? And it all comes down to creating a supply demand issue, like if it costs more to recycle it than it does to make it new, we're at an inflection point where people don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's where we run into, like I said, one day I feel like plastics are going to be gold and we're all going to be like, oh, I'm pay, $50 a pound for that material or $1,000 a pound for that material. And we're all going to be like, wow, do you remember back in the day when, that stuff was being thrown away in the trash can? And we're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember that, a long
Yeah.
time ago, nobody wanted to recycle then.
Well,
Like,
and the consumers don't want to pay more. And I keep saying the word consumer. Brands have responsibility here too. I think the brands want to pay less on packaging, and I'm not saying it's 100% their fault either. But if they truly want PCR and PIR or recycled content inclusion, they can do it. They're just going to have to pay a little bit more for their packaging, and
right.
then either pass it on to the consumer or eat it out of
They have
their
to eat it.
margin.
They have
Yeah.
to eat it right now until the consumers catch up.
Yeah.
What if you couldn't get what you wanted at the store? It wasn't available, like your favorite whatever,
Yeah.
or your favorite thing at, wherever you bought your thing at, it wasn't available anymore. What if you couldn't get a car anymore and cars were scarce? Consumers will care about things only when it impacts them. For now, the responsibility has to be on legislation and it has to be on brand owners to educate and teach people. That is an unfortunate reality of where we are as a society. We're living in this very golden, beautiful age where things are plentiful and we have so much, but that's not going to last forever. The math is very clear on that. And if you don't believe that and you think you're going to be retired by then, or you don't know what's going to happen, and that's not you right now, I'm going to ask you really carefully, what do you think is going to happen when it's not you? Who do you not care about that it's going to happen to? Your child, your grandchild, your grandchild's child? When do you stop caring? because that's going to happen.
I think consumerism is a big issue, right? I think capitalism is a wonderful system. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a socialist by any means, and I want to make that very clear. But I think the mass consumption and overconsumption is it's a big issue globally, not just in America. This is becoming more of a global issue, and the fact that there aren't material like recovery systems at all in third world has become a major problem globally
I
because
was
all of
just
that material is leaking, and it's a
Yeah,
problem.
I was just in Europe, and I was really fascinated to see all of the interest that they had in recycled material, compared to the US, which falls very short of
Hmm.
interest in recycled material. And there is not a definition on PCR versus PIR in Europe. Not a clear definition anyway. What matters is that it's got recycled. And that's one of the major problems that we have here as a society is that we have these like really linear lines. Somebody's come up with the idea that, it should matter where it came from. And I don't think that that should count anywhere. The math should
Yeah.
play out no matter where it comes from. And because we've created this PCR frenzy, we have now gotten ourselves into a point where people don't care about post-industrial waste and it's just getting thrown away. And let me be clear, there's no oversight right now in America for anybody who's throwing away waste that's a
Yeah.
manufacturer. No one is watching them. And I know that that sounds scary, but that's what's really happening. So if we're not recycling it as recyclers, and it doesn't matter that post-industrial waste is getting recycled, it's being landfilled
Yeah.
because no one is going to watch them. So our role as recyclers, whether it's post-industrial or post-consumer, matters significantly. And also, I have to say, this is something that really bothers me when I go in and I look at municipalities and I don't understand this. Maybe you can answer this for me since you talk to more people than I do. Why are municipalities not collecting waste from industries?
Right. It's a good question. Why is that not in the same system? I don't know. It's it's an oversight, that's for sure.
I don't think it's an oversight. I think it's very intentional. I think
Because
there
they
is
don't want the
reason why
responsibility.
they are recycling in places where there are large cities that push for that, right? To me, it's all about the very simple idea that the municipality is for show. That's why those things aren't getting recycled. That's why they're not collecting material from, employers where there's a whole lot more people and a whole lot more available material. That's why we got rid of trash cans and compactors. Because I was like, what comes in with you should go out with you. It goes back
Mhm.
into your municipality recycling because that's the only forum that we as a consumer have. Because we don't have that at my plant. The only options I have are to call a waste hauler to haul away your trash because your trash isn't enough to be worth anything to municipality. It's a back to a math problem. Even though we're paying for that service, it's not worth it to them to pick up my consumable waste that I have as an industry, but it's worth it to them to pick up my consumable waste that I have outside my house, which is significantly less.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've never actually thought about it or had a conversation about it. So that's a new one for me. Yeah. Yeah. So I think we've jumped around my outline a little bit, which is fine. Like we
Sorry.
talked about when we
Told you
started.
you have to stop me.
Hey, conversation goes where conversation goes. I'm fine with that. But one thing I did want to talk about and ask, if you had a crystal ball, where do you see the recycling industry in 10 years? I know you've got the idea for the recovery facility. Do you think that's something that could happen in the next 10 years, or do we look very similar to the way we look right now? Do you think there's enough momentum to make significant changes?
I mean, I think it's a really hard thing to know what consumers are going to do and what industries are going to do. If we're short-sighted, then I think we will be doing less recycling in 10 years than we are doing today. If we get some people involved who can see the long game and see the value in what they're doing because they're not just about today's profits, but about the future and being able to sustain something that can keep going on and on and on, then I think that we have that kind of system where we design resource recovery centers and we don't have landfills anymore. We have to get rid of landfills. The idea that we have a magic bin that makes everything go away is what's causing this disruption
Yeah.
in expectation. The magic bin has got to go away.
Yeah.
And
There's a lot of conversation about well, this is going away. I'm throwing it away. Where
yeah,
is away? What is the away? And I
yeah,
think that's the part that nobody thinks through.
right.
And truly, the away is the most important part of this whole discussion. Whatever you're consuming, that is the part that you need to be thinking of when you're making the purchase, when you first start. What happens to this at the end? And this really should be in product design all the way through. So what happens to this product at the very end of its life cycle? That
Well,
should be part of the discussion. And it's not part of the discussion, at least as much as I've seen. It's changing. It's becoming more part of the conversation,
well, even
but
the
it's
dialogue that
not.
we're seeing, this end of life conversation is such crap. I mean, quite frankly, there's no such thing as end of life. In nature, you never see a tree die and not be reused.
Mhm.
Every piece of it gets reused into something new,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think the paradigm shift and just the different way of looking at things.
Mm.
And because I candidly use the phrase end of life plastics all the time, but I
Oh,
think you make a valid
I
point.
have-
Yeah. I think maybe I shouldn't be
No, you
based on
shouldn't
this
be.
conversation.
Terrible conversation to have.
Yeah. Yeah. But see, I'm
Because
learning.
you're framing the audience to believe that there is a stopping point, and that is just not true. There is nothing. If we are going to have the responsibility to create these amazing products like plastics, then we have to have the same responsibility to imagine what happens to them next. And we have essentially taken something that doesn't exist within this environment, and we've asked it to do whatever we want it to do in this environment in a way that it's not designed to do. So we have to be just as responsible for that product as we do for any other product. Same thing with the cardboard, same thing with aluminum, same thing with glass. If we are expecting these products to perform without our assistance, we can't act like gods and then do nothing to protect it.
Yep.
We're skipping an entire part of this cycle, the
Yep.
one in which it never ends.
See, I'm learning something every day. That's the whole goal of this. I need to get better at everything that I do. I like to think that I'm pretty sustainably minded, that I really do focus on lowering my impact on a daily basis. But I think the way that we communicate this stuff is just as important. And that's the main
Yeah.
reason why I want to do these kind of conversations, because I'm learning as I go, and my thought processes have changed a lot just based on the original. This is the seventh discussion I've had in this podcast, and I've learned something in each one of them. So I've really enjoyed it so far.
Yeah, I liked your consumer content from
Yeah.
all your friends. That was interesting.
Yeah. My buddies that don't know anything about plastics, and
Well, it's
they
interesting.
were,
You get to like hear their dialogue, like what they
yeah,
think and how they
yeah,
feel. And, what are the future careers that we can have in this type of industry is also something we should be dialoguing with consumers. Like you care about the environment, but what does that look like in the future? What kind of jobs are there available for people
yeah,
who are caring about the environment? And really, quite frankly, like if we all took nature's approach to design, and this is on my website, but it's kind of my philosophy in life, then landfills would be a thing of the past because we wouldn't have this approach to design where we just create, and do nothing different, you know?
yeah.
Like, I'm going to be super cheesy now, but, I really like the Marvel series.
Okay.
And I really like that saying that Uncle Ben says to Spider-Man. And he says, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
And that is what we have created with plastics. You know, we've,
That's actually a biblical reference, but that's
oh, okay, well,
neither
there
here
you
nor
go.
there. Yeah.
I didn't have the biblical reference, but
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying. And I
No, I
totally,
do. And I think it means a lot. And I truly feel that way about my position within the plastic industry. there's a lot of responsibility that I have to do what's right for the industry and for the environment, because that's my role. And I really do want to leave this world a better place. And I think these conversations are helpful in getting there. And so, and I also wanted to say, you mentioned the conversations with consumer episodes. I want to mention again for my friends in Australia, those were not industry plugs. Those are just my friends from college. You can look it up. They're just buddies of mine. They have no interest in plastics. So leave them alone. Please leave them
Aw.
alone.
I mean, that
But
is so
anyway,
I hope that the people I appreciate the people who are putting out their passion into
no,
your
they're very
podcast.
passionate and, and,
Fabulous.
and, and they think I'm being disingenuous when I tell them, I was like, no, I appreciate the interaction online. And I appreciate the fact that you are so strongly convicted. I'm strongly convicted too, as long as we can be constructive in how we talk to each other, by all means. Like somebody told me the other day that I should start blocking people on LinkedIn. I was like, no, these conversations are important and I want
How do you
other
know what
viewpoints.
other people
Yeah.
think unless you listen to them? You know, they should
Yeah.
have a seat at your table.
And
And
if they want to post on every single one of my posts something about how I'm being disingenuous, that's fine. I have no issue with that because they are very committed and that's great. I want people to be committed to being more sustainable. I may disagree on how we get there, but those folks are very committed to what they believe and that's fine. I like that. Let's have more of those people, please. But anyway, that's
no, no, no,
that's
I
an
get it.
aside.
I totally
Yeah.
understand. I mean, I've mostly been behind the scenes for the last 20-ish years. Like, I don't like going to trade shows, and I rarely make an
Well,
appearance.
we need to change that, by the way. I need you to be
Well,
more out front.
I find our industry to be very disingenuous. You know, and that is the reason why I don't. So I decided that I was going to put my effort into areas that I thought would be impactful. So going to schools, helping teach people about their impact. Like one of the things that we do is we have people carry around it at our plant too, their own little carrying station where they put their trash and their waste in. And if they carry around more than they want to carry during the day, that's really meaningful. Like it's figurative and literal, you know, because kids, when they do it, they go, "Oh my gosh, this is so much to carry. It's such a burden."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, wow. What do you think is
Getting my kid to
happening?"
carry a backpack is
Yeah.
tough enough.
I mean, like,
Add
you
more
didn't
stuff
all
in
this
there.
waste. I've
Yeah.
even had parents tell me, like, "That's so unsanitary." I'm like, "Why? It's your kid's waste. Like, your kid
Yeah.
made it." You know, like if you don't like it, then maybe you should not let your kid do that. So we got rid of vending machines. We take the responsibility on ourselves. And this is something that all your viewers can do too. Take the responsibility on yourself, you know, to make an impact in your personal life and what you are doing with your life. Like we got rid of vending machines because I wanted nothing that people could throw away. I didn't want to feel responsible for providing them with extra packaging that wasn't going to get recycled, you know, that wasn't going to go anywhere. And so we did a garden sharing program instead, because we knew that at least that product, if it got thrown outside or somebody forgot about it, it would get composted. So I think I would say to all your viewers, you know, who are really passionate about the environment, take your time to understand the materials that you're using and what can you do differently in your world. Like one of the things I did in my house was I got rid of all of my trash cans in a localized place because I had a trash can like literally every room. I mean, I was surprised how many trash cans I owned. It's like, holy crap, I have a lot of trash cans, you know? And I said, okay, I'm going to have recycle bins more accessible to me so that I would recycle more. And what ended up happening was that I recycled twice as often as I landfilled something in my own house. And it's a little simple fix. It's not going to stop the world from throwing away waste, but it's something I can do personally and that made a difference in my environment. Humans are pretty lazy naturally, and we're going to follow the path that is easy. And so if the path that's easy means that, you know, we have to get up and walk 3 different rooms over to throw something away in the trash can, chances are good either it's not going to get thrown away or we're not going to carry something in our room with us that has to be thrown away, or we're going to use something different that, you know, is reusable instead of throwawayable because it's easier. So,
Hmm.
my best advice to anybody who's really passionate about the environment is to look at your own lifestyle and say, how can I make a difference in my space? And then how can I expand that and radiate it outside of me to help other people do the right thing too? And in my case, I did that as an employer. But if you're not an employer, maybe you can do that by helping educate other people about their impact too. Carry around your waste for a whole day. How much are you really making? Most people have no idea, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. And by doing that, you really start to understand your impact personally. And then you can start making changes with what you're doing. And get rid of those trash cans in every single room. Like, that's insane. Nobody needs that many
Yeah.
trash cans.
So I've got, there's going to be an upcoming guest on the podcast. Her episode is going to be after Christmas, but I saw her post today. Susan Staff, she's in the UK. She owns a recycling company in the UK. And she was talking about how for Christmas this year, to combat all of the consumerism and all of the waste that comes with the holiday season, because there's a lot, right? I remember growing up as a kid, our trash cans were always extra full after Christmas because of
Yeah.
all the wrapping paper and all this stuff. And
Yep.
she was going to do secondhand stores for everything and find something thoughtful for everybody on her list. And I love that idea. I love the idea of not creating something new just because it's a holiday, just because you feel like you have to
Yeah.
for Christmas. But really, what we should be doing is reusing what's out there, because there's some awesome stuff at secondhand stores or consignment shops or something like that, that just as good or maybe even better than new products. And I think if
Often
we
made
start
better
thinking
quality
through this
too.
stuff,
That is cheap.
yeah, if we start thinking through these things on a daily basis about what is my personal impact and what is it that I'm consuming on a daily basis, I think you're dead on. It's going to change the way we do things.
Right.
And that's the goal, right? We want to use less. I think everybody wants or should. Maybe they don't want to use less, but they should want to use less.
Well, you have to understand what you're doing before you can change anything. I mean,
Yeah.
just as a funny little side note, I decided plastics mathematically was a far better product than any of the other products out there due to a multitude of factors, which,
Hmm.
we would have a whole podcast on just that.
Yeah.
But I also decided that I was going to challenge myself by having no plastic in my life for a whole day. I was like, what would my life look like if I didn't have any plastic? And because I had this experience of knowing what was made out of plastic and what wasn't made out of plastic, I think my challenge was a lot harder than people who are a little less knowledgeable on
Yeah.
what plastic products they might not be getting involved in. So I went in and I found myself almost naked out in a field by myself because I couldn't touch anything that was plastic. I had no plastic in my life at that moment. And I was there for like an hour and I was like, this sucks. I'm
It
done.
really does. You're not
Touch-
driving. You don't have a cell phone. You don't have a computer. You got
And
nothing.
you don't have pipes because now most things are made out of PEX, which is, plastic product. And you don't have fridges because fridges are made out of plastic. And you don't
Yep.
have TVs and you don't have paint on your walls. And I mean, we could just go down the list of all the things that are made out of plastics that exist within our world right now that have made things possible. So it was eye-opening for me to
Mhm.
realize just how meaningful this product is, how amazing this product has become. You're right, we need to be more conscientious. Like we went in and we used T-shirts to wrap presents, old T-shirts that we had. So instead of like donating the T-shirts, we cut them up and made like a little, um, wrapping paper out of them, which was kind of a fun project, but
Mhm.
it was probably better to have recycled those and given them away than it would have been to do that because we kind of ruined them at that time. But it was a fun project to like see like, okay, how can we reuse something that, may not get um, used in this way in the future.
So we've already talked for 54 minutes,
It
which
doesn't feel like it.
I know it's not surprising to me. Every one of these flies by, but I got a couple things that I definitely want to cover with you before I let you go. And there's only so long we can keep people interested in plastics. And I
Ah,
think we're
hear that.
teetering on the edge of
Don't
that
leave
right
us now.
now. So from your perspective, being in the recycling industry, what is the biggest hurdle for the recycling industry and specifically for recyclers like yourself in the US on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think it's convincing people that there's a value add to recycling.
Mhm.
That is the biggest hurdle because I can tell you all day long that it's worth more, that you're saving 8 years or you're saving millions of years. But it's really hard to convince people that the now is now,
Yeah.
it's happening right now when they're not experiencing it right now. So, I think the biggest hurdle that any recycler has, whether they're just in it for the profit or they're in it to make a difference or they're doing both, is convincing people to stay relevant and not just follow industry trends because those industry trends end up being just that. They're fads. They come and they go. Be classy, you know? And
Mhm.
classy never goes out of style. And
Yeah.
as long as you're doing that, then you won't have a problem. So we just have to convince people that it's worth doing and that it's meaningful and that it's worth paying more for. In fact, when I was over in Europe just recently, one of the conversations that I had with them was about consumer interest versus in Europe versus here. There is not as many legislation rules that require people to use plastics in Europe as there are in other places, but there's a lot of consumer demand for it. So people are willing to pay for it. They're willing to focus on it. They're willing to put their effort into it. And if we don't push that as a narrative, like you have such a great opportunity, you have people listening to you, talking to you, understanding what you're saying, and they're willing, whether they're complaining or whether or not they're relevating in what you're doing, they're still listening.
Mhm.
You have a voice. You have power. And that's what I've always said to the brand owners. You have power. Your power is your voice. And if you use that right, you can make a difference in so many
Yeah.
people's lives. But you
Yeah.
can't be
Agree.
short-sighted. And that's the
Yeah.
problem. That's the hurdle. We got to get rid of the legislation pushing us to do it. Just do it because it's the right thing to do. You know,
Yes. If we could do that, and I bash Americans a lot. Obviously, I am one, but
nobody can talk bad about us except for us.
I know it, but we're lazy. We're just really lazy. And there's an argument also on my LinkedIn right now about whether or not recycling is something that we should even be doing, and I mentioned the thing about the recycling rate or the participation rate and how that was disinformation and
Mm.
multiple different people coming after me at that. But I think we truly need Americans to want to recycle,
Yeah.
and not just recycle. Recycle is only 1/3 of what we need them to do. We need them to reduce and
Redo.
reuse and recycle. Those three
Well,
things. If
yeah.
Americans aren't going to do that, we're not going to change anything.
Well, I look at it like this. And when you talk to your folks, maybe you can bring this as an example. If every bird only lived one day, what sort of impact would that have on your environment? That's what we're doing when we're not recycling. We are
Mhm.
cutting short the potential of a product to do more. And why would you want that? What
Yeah.
benefit does that serve for you as a consumer? It doesn't. It serves you nothing. You get nothing out of that. You want that bird to live its whole life. Plant seeds, transport things around. Do what it's supposed to do as a species to be able to make a healthy ecology. If we aren't recycling, what good does it do you? You get nothing out of that.
Yeah.
So if you don't care about it, that's fine, but be selfish. Be really
Yeah.
selfish
Yeah,
and
and
want
be
more.
honest with people about it, because the other thing is 71% of Americans say they do recycle on a daily basis, and only 43% according to TRP, 41% according to another study I saw, and then 45%
I
according
just
to
posted
another one.
this on
Yeah.
LinkedIn the other day. Or yesterday, I was like, a North Carolina DEQ says 43% of people are the people who are recycling that have access to recycling, and
Yeah.
47% or something like that don't even have access to recycling.
And for
So,
the record, my Australian friends, that is the government of North Carolina that is saying
yeah,
that. That is not a plastics industry plug.
yeah,
DEQ is the Department of Environmental Quality
right.
in North Carolina. So that is not us saying that. That is the government saying that Americans are not recycling and we need to recycle. And I don't want to hear any more garbage about how recycling is fake. I've seen it. I am recycling.
Doing it.
Sarah's company is recycling. A lot of companies are recycling. It's not perfect. We need to be better, but people are recycling. So stop. Just stop with all of this. And I know one of the guys on there is just trying to troll me to get me in an argument. And I'm not going to do it. I'm not taking the bait. You
I
can
tell
keep
him,
trying.
go out
Yeah.
there and do it for yourself, man. Like,
Yeah.
really
By all
try
means, if you have a
something.
better idea, bring it
We're open
forward.
to it.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us what to do.
Anyway.
Tell
Anyway.
us what to do. If you know so much,
So
please educate
yeah.
us.
Yeah. You're smarter than all of us. So please bless us with your knowledge. So what would you say to those that want to ban plastics or believe that recycling doesn't work?
I would say live one day without your plastics.
Yeah. I love that. It's a great idea.
One day without your plastics. And for those of you who think that plastics are bad, I would say do some history lessons because you might find that the facts don't support what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
Don't be
The
don't
emotional argumentation. Yeah.
Yeah, don't be stuck in this narrative that media has been pushing on you. And quite frankly, other companies who lost some industry share push on you. Like, look for the facts yourself. You're smart people. You know how to look things up. We're good at that now. So look up the right stuff. Look up
You got
private.
more faith in the American population
Of
than I
course
do.
I do. I
Yeah.
teach kids and college students, and these kids, they're so smart, they're so bright, and when they start experiencing these things and they start walking around with their trash all day long and they start realizing the value of the services and the opportunities that are out there, they are amazed. So yeah, I believe in the people. I believe that people are smart and we're really good at researching things. So research the facts, the real
Yeah.
facts,
I
not
think
the ones
that
yeah.
is that's an excellent place to put a pin in this discussion. I definitely want to talk to you again.
Okay.
I'm going to throw that out there. I want to get multiple of these kind of discussions together. I would love to have even maybe some dissenting voices in that discussion.
Sure.
But what I wanted to do is give you the opportunity to kind of tell people how to get in touch with you if they want to look at your products. How can they find you? How can they support what you're doing? So anything like that.
Yeah. So you can reach us at info@ssd-designs.com. If you are looking for a recycled product, or even a hybrid product, that's our specialty. Please let us know. We work with industries from horticulture all the way up to aerospace design. So we know you and we know what you need. And we're ready to listen and help you where you want help at, for industries, for consumers. If you want us to come talk to your school and understand more about resource management, or you're just looking for an ear to, help lend some ideas to, or things that you might be able to do, you're welcome to come visit us. We're in Forest City, North Carolina. You can check out our website at www.ssd-designs.com. I know nobody does that anymore, right? We're also
Hmm.
on TikTok at ssd-designs.com, or I'm sorry, underscore designs.com. And we make a product right now that is consumer viable. So if you're a consumer, please, reach out to us. We are on Amazon. We are on Walmart. We're on our website. It is a planter that is made out of 247.9 equivalent medium-sized potato chip bags that would have otherwise gone to landfill that isn't now. So it can be used in a lot of different applications. We tried to make it as versatile as possible. But give us your ideas. Where do you think that we can be impactful? What can we do to help you understand better what you need to do to be a meaningful resource manager here in your own life? And we're happy to help where we can, whether it's a company or a consumer or a school. So
Yeah.
that's us.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. It's been enlightening, and really appreciate you taking the time. I know you say that you don't do a lot of this type of activity. I'm going
No.
to change that because I think you're a great voice for the recycling industry, and there aren't enough of those out there, to be honest with you. You mentioned it earlier that you don't really like a lot of the people in your industry.
I
I don't
don't.
either. Just to be completely honest
I
with
have
you, I've been,
I don't do corruption well. That is my problem.
yeah, yeah.
I literally wrote a book on my bad experiences within the recycling industry. So yeah, I understand when people say they don't like recyclers.
You're one of the good ones. And so I really appreciate you taking the time. And this has been the Redefining Plastics podcast. My name is Justin Riney. Have a great day. Thanks so much. If you want to learn more about the plastics industry, recycling, check out these other videos. Please like and subscribe.